Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mafia and Gangsters video. I thought I would mix another one of these in here now that I just wrapped up the other recent video associated with Frank Rio. If you haven't had a chance to check out that video, go to my playlist there under Mafia and Gangsters and then you'll see it there along with all the other videos that I've made with regards to this topic. But I had a lot of fun during the last video, so I thought I'd mix another one in here. This one once again has to do with a mafioso gangster whom history has not necessarily remembered afterwards, but I always like to showcase those lesser known associates. This guy actually ended up running for a short time period the Lucchese crime family, and he was definitely a mafioso gangster through and through. Not much information though associated with him, so this might be a brief video, but again, I'll try to feature as much as I can. In fact, you're looking at a picture of him now, very interesting picture. His full name was Bonaventura Pinzolo. As always, he has nicknames. Mafioso gangsters have nicknames, and in his case, it was simply Joseph. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating but brief info associated with Joseph Pinzolo. Let me know what you guys and gals think about it too. I'll give my own thoughts and comments on it as well. So yes, who was Joseph Pinzolo? Again, very little info is tied to him. All we know is that he was born sometime in 1887. There's not even an exact date with regards to his birthday, but he was born in that year there in Sicily. But then it was shortly after, maybe about 10 years or so, sometime in the late 1890s, that he had ended up moving over to New York City, and that's essentially when his mafioso career just essentially began. It started off in a pretty strong way too. He brought over a remnant, a hallmark associated with the mafia in Sicily, the Black Hand. So in 1908, he was actually there operating as a Black Hand extortionist. Now, I've talked about the Black Hand organization before in one of my past videos. I'll just sum it up here as well for those of you that are interested in this. This was an organization, a loose one, of Italian-American racketeers, those that ended up moving over from Italy over to the United States with the immigration of Italian Americans, and this was somewhere around the 1880s to the 1930s. What made them very infamous was the fact that they ended up extorting so many Italian immigrants while here in the United States. In fact, it was established mainly in New York City, obviously with Joseph Pinzolo being one of the operators there, but they also had their hands in Philadelphia, Chicago, New Orleans, San Francisco, and Detroit. And again, their main emphasis was extorting Italian immigrants. It was to the point that they were doing physical threats, kidnapping, arson, even up to murder when it came to trying to get money from the very people that they were allegedly trying to protect. So that's essentially the Black Hand in a quick summation, and Joseph Pinzolo was absolutely involved in it. In fact, at one point, he ended up being arrested in 1908 when he had attempted to bomb a location. In fact, you're looking at the location here, which is the exact address of 314 East 11th Street there in New York. Apparently, he was trying to bomb that place because he was trying to get quote-unquote protection money from that owner, but the owner wasn't having it. Again, that's the infamy associated with Black Hand. They're protecting the very immigrants that they're trying to extort or cause physical harm, even up to death from. But he got arrested, and at one point the police gave him a chance. They could rat out his boss at the time, a Camorra leader by the name of Giuseppe Costabile. He must have gotten cold feet afterward because realizing what would happen to him if he ever got caught by those that he had ratted out on, he decided to then stop doing it. He refused to testify against Giuseppe, and that in turn made the police and whoever else that was trying to prosecute him furious, and so they ended up imprisoning him for the next 5 years. Cut to a little bit afterward, and then that's when Joseph Pinzolo got a step up in his mafioso career. At that point, he was in the Lucchese crime family, although it wasn't called the Lucchese crime family back then. It went through several names. I think it might have been at that point known as the Gagliano crime family. Somebody let me know If in the comments if I'm correct on that. It just had different names before Tommy Lucchese essentially took over. But yeah, he was there in that time period running it, because the guy that was associated with it, Gaetano Reina, who ended up running that family, ended up being murdered. And so he was next in line. So Joseph Pinzolo suddenly went from being a black hand extortionist and somebody in the racketeering process to now being actually running as the actual head figure associated with, for lack of a better term, I'll just mention it, the most popular name it has, the Lucchese crime family. And then he ended up doing this for a very, very short time period, because he allied himself with another guy by the name of Salvatore Maranzano. They were apparently in opposition to another mafioso, guy by the name of Joe Masseria, and this was just all in the life of an American gangster like him. So, and it was a very short time period, because cut to a little bit later that year, on September 5th, 1930, and that's when his infamous life ended up catching up to him. He ended up being murdered right outside of all places, a fruit importation company building that ended up being owned by Girolamo Santuaco. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Girolamo Santuccio. And so when that happened, that was it. That was essentially the end of Bonaventura Joseph Pinzolo. So there he was, being born in 1887, immigrating over to New York City when he was really, really young. But then also while he was young, he ended up becoming in the world of the mafioso gangsters, and then being a black hand extortionist, almost getting to the point where he was going to be a rat also to one of his bosses, but he ended up being instead an imprisoned gangster, and then being out afterward, he ended up elevating himself to running for a very, very short time period the Lucchese crime family after the murder of the previous boss. It was almost in a weird way like a poetic world where he took that job after his boss ended up getting murdered, and then he in turn ended up getting murdered afterward, and someone else took his job as well. So that's it. That's pretty much all the info linked to Joseph Pinzolo. But if anybody has any more information, anything else I might have missed, please post those comments below. I tried to see too what was involved with that picture of him having it looked like a very large bandage wrapped around his head. I couldn't find any information on that. I'm sure he had a pretty rough life, being somebody within that type of organization and elevating himself to a quick position like that. No doubt that he had got his hands dirty when it came to collecting things. After all, he was an extortionist, right? He was somebody that was there trying to, again, collect quote-unquote protection money from people that would sometimes put up a fight and so on. So I would imagine that at a certain point that he was there in a couple of fights and who knows what other type of violent activity. That's the closest summation that I could get with regards to that photo. But if anybody has any more info on that, then let me know. All right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care.